There is a moment when understanding doesn't arrive as a thought, but as a quiet shift inside your body. Nothing dramatic happens. No message ends things. No conversation explains it. Life simply continues, and something in you stops leaning forward. You begin to notice how often you are the one who reaches out first. How connection depends on your presence, your patience, your flexibility. How warmth appears only when you invite it. Not because the other person is cruel. Not because something is obviously wrong. But because choice has a different texture than tolerance. When you are chosen, you don't have to prove your place. You don't measure your words. You don't wait for permission to exist fully. When you are not, everything feels slightly delayed. Responses come later. Affection feels conditional. Interest arrives only after effort. You tell yourself it's just timing. That people express care differently. That closeness grows slowly. And maybe all of that is true. But your body knows something your mind keeps postponing. You notice how your energy bends around the situation. How you soften your needs before they are even spoken. How you prepare yourself for absence instead of presence. Not because you lack self-respect, but because hope still lives there. Hope is quiet like that. It doesn't scream, it waits. Until one day, waiting no longer feels hopeful. It feels hollow. You don't feel rejected. You feel unseen. And there is a difference. Rejection is loud. It hurts sharply. It demands a response. Being unseen is subtle. It erodes instead of breaking. It teaches you to shrink without realizing it. You start to notice how much emotional labor is required just to stay connected. How often you are interpreting silence. How much meaning you assign to small gestures. You are building closeness out of fragments. And then, slowly, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Choice doesn't need to be chased. Interest doesn't need reminders. Care doesn't arrive reluctantly when someone chooses you. You don't feel like an option. This realization doesn't come with anger. It doesn't even come with sadness at first. It comes with stillness. A stillness that says, I see what this is. You look at yourself, open, available, emotionally present, and you see that the space on the other side remains unchanged. You were offering connection. They were allowing proximity. And those are not the same. There is grief here. Not the kind that collapses you. The kind that quietly closes a chapter you were still reading. You grieve the version of the connection that lived in your imagination. The ease you hoped would appear eventually. The moment you thought would arrive when effort would turn into mutuality. And as you grieve, something inside you grows still. You stop asking what else you could have done. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happened. You stop adjusting yourself to fit a space that never fully opened. Not because you're stronger, but because clarity no longer negotiates. You allow the truth to exist without trying to soften it. You were not being chosen, and staying was slowly teaching you to accept less presence than you deserve. This understanding doesn't tell you what to do next. It doesn't push you toward leaving or confronting or deciding. It simply asks you to stop mistaking endurance for love. You don't become colder after this. You don't become guarded. You become still. Still enough to notice what feels mutual, and what only survives because you keep it alive. And in that stillness, you don't make promises to yourself. You don't declare endings. You simply return to your own center, carrying the quiet dignity that comes from seeing things as they are, and no longer asking yourself to stay where you are not chosen.